All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, wherever you are. We are FPL Under the Radar. This is our Game Week 1 preview video for the 2022-23 season. I'm here with my buddies, my co-hosts, ZD and Wrangler. How are you doing, ZD?
Hi, Kante. Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing good. Very excited. Just, I think we have less than 36 hours, right?
About
Um,
36 hours, yeah.
yeah, new season is starting. Excited about it. What
Nice,
about you?
nice. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited too. As I said in the last preseason video too, I never felt that I left Twitter throughout the preseason, so it like just feels like a continuation of last season in a way. But yeah, I'm excited. This season feels like it's going to be an exciting one. So yeah, definitely excited.
Mhm.
Thanks for joining me, Wrangler buddy. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good, buddy. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Excited for Game Week 1, the new season.
Absolutely. Less than 48 hours. Excited for for ourselves, for me, for our FPL, everything. It has been a phenomenal journey so far, and looking forward to it. Hopefully, it's going to be a blast this season. So.
Nice, nice. Yeah, again, thank you for joining me as well. So, of course, for those who didn't follow us through the preseason over the last couple of weeks, so we did a couple of videos with some of the APL USA guests. We did a Tottenham, Arsenal, and Wolves video with Jamie, Dan, and uh, Yogesh. And then also we did another second video last week for Crystal Palace, Liverpool, and Manchester United with Diane, Nehal, and Paz. So please do check out those videos, for especially if you are interested for the assets for specifically those teams. Today we are going to talk more about, of course, because this is Game Week 1 discussion. So we'll talk about fixtures. We'll talk about the kind of the key stats for building a Game Week 1 squad. Uh, we all of us, at least three of us, we are kind of stats oriented people. So and our channel is kind of directed towards that as well. So whenever we talk about APL, we are heavily loaded with stats, but of course we watch all the games also. So it's a mix of stats and eye test, but we are stats dominant, I would say. So we'll look at some of the key stats. We'll talk about some of the community dilemmas, try to answer some of the questions that a lot of people have pre-game week 1. Uh, and of course, we'll talk about the game week 1 captaincy. And finally, last but not the least, we'll talk about our own teams, right? And then that's going to be the important discussion if all of us are uh, kind of trying to make sure that we have the optimum team structure, optimum players, the right players, and so on. So that's something that we'll spend time on as well to talk through our own drafts, game week 1 drafts. All right, so with that, let's get started. Let's get into our discussion. So I'll just quickly run through the fixtures again. I, of course, don't want to read everything out here. So this is from Holly Shand. She did a nice job this year to kind of lay out all the fixtures in a good visual way, where we also can see kind of the midweek fixtures, where the breaks are, and so on. So this season is, of course, a little bit unique in a way because there is a World Cup break in December, kind of the in the festive time period. Generally, the World Cup happens in June, July timeframe, but because this year it's in Qatar, they have to move it to the winter. So that's why there is a break in the middle of the season. So it's right after game week 16. So basically, that isolates the season in two parts. So APL announced when they came up with the new game this season, that there will be unlimited transfers post game week 16, essentially, right? So after all the players come back from the World Cup, you'll have unlimited transfers, right? So it's a complete reset, right, for everyone. So it's necessarily a wild card, but it's a wild card for everyone at the same point of time. So that's the uniqueness of this season. um, Other than that, there is, of course, a big international break between game week 8 and game week 9. So when we'll talk about our teams and kind of how long are we thinking about keeping our teams for, that will come into play, because we have to play the wildcard one before game week 16 as well. So that kind of plays into that, how, what players we are choosing and how long of a fixture run that we are looking at. And another key thing is that there are kind of midweek fixtures starting game week 3, so like before game week 4 essentially. So the EFL starts. West Ham United has their conference league is starting right between game week 2 and game week 3. Other than that, the Champions League kind of, all the big teams will have their UCL games starting post game week 6. So those are kind of the high level things that we just wanted to touch on, because everything that we're going to talk about, all these fixtures and how they're laid out, will have an impact on them, right? Anything that you guys want to touch on, overall fixtures, or how you're thinking, this being kind of a unique season? Wrangler, you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, right, there there'll be two wild cards essentially, right, before game week 17, right? So there are two school of thoughts right now going on, right? So one is basically people are thinking to go aggressive because now you can have one extra wild card that you can use earlier, right? But another school of thought is that the fixture looks so good for the big teams, especially, right? So we are so fortunate about that. So some people was thinking to at least do the play the wild card, usually the like game week 8 or 9, whenever the international break is. And if you see right from game week 4, essentially the fixture congestion is so congested right before the
Mm-hmm.
World Cup. So like there are a lot of things actually to wait and see, because the players we are picking right now, whenever these midweek games and the European like games start, we'll see lots of rotation, right? So we will not get that picture until game week 6, 7, or 8, right? And then we have international breaks. There could be lots of injuries. So I'm saying like both school of thoughts are valid, right? But
Mm-hmm.
again, whenever you pick up your team, see the big pictures as well, because the fixture is so much congested, you from
Right.
game week 4 to the World Cup. So, yep, just wanted to mention that.
Yep. Good points. All right, so let's move on to a little more details. And as Wrangler was mentioning, the good teams have good fixtures, right? And generally, that doesn't always happen. Even last season, when we started, I think Man City had a week off. Chelsea didn't have a great fixture to start with. So a lot of us started with like a very cheap backline, right? I remember starting with like 2 or 3, 4 million defenders. This year is a little different, right? So the good teams, the actual good teams have really good fixtures as well, right? So this is basically our radar appeals fixture ticker based on our fixture difficulty rating. And the fixture difficulty ratings are essentially based on last season's data, because that's the best data that we have at our hand right now. So as you can see, from an attacking perspective, Man City and Liverpool, they are clearly the two best teams in the league, and they have one of the best fixtures to start with. So as we said before, we are looking at game week 1 to 8, because after game week 8 is the international break. So most of the people will look to wildcard in that time frame. As Wrangler mentioned, some people may want to play aggressive and play the wildcard a little earlier, as soon as they have all the information handy about X minutes and so on. But generally speaking, I think the bigger population would kind of want to play the wildcard as late as possible, that being kind of that game week 8, game week 9 time frame. So that's why we're looking at game week 1 to 8. Tottenham and Chelsea also have pretty good fixtures from an attacking perspective. Arsenal has been phenomenal in the preseason, and they have also very good attacking fixtures to start with. Some of the smaller teams like Brighton and Brentford and Wolves, some of the teams that we have been looking at a lot for in the preseason, they also have very decent fixtures. So something to look out for that. And especially when we talk about the players, a lot of their players being cheap, they are very good enablers, so that you can actually get into all these other big teams, big players from the big teams as well. So that's something that we'll also touch on. But yeah, and same thing from a defensive perspective as well, right? Same thing. Man City has been the best defense in the league for like last few years, last 4 or 5 years at least, by far. They have the best fixtures again from a defensive perspective, better than anyone else. Liverpool probably the second best defense again over the last few seasons. They have one of the best fixtures. Brighton has good fixtures. Leeds is interesting, right? So Leeds' fixtures look good from a defensive perspective, but I know we know all know how leaky they were last season. They kind of started to improve under Jesse Marsh, but again, this will be kind of a whole new season for them, right? So they are kind of wait and watch, of course, even though their fixtures are good from at least from a defensive perspective. Brentford and Brighton are another two teams. Again, they were decent defensively last year. Both of those teams, especially Brighton, were pretty good. Uh, the reason that we are looking at them again is because they offer some very good value goalkeepers and defenders, and we'll talk about them as well. So again, it's not just all about the big teams. You also want to find out the best cheap enablers also, right, from the teams that have good fixtures, right? And the decent teams and good fixtures. So again, this is just to kind of visually show everyone that the good teams have good fixtures. So don't again overthink. Make sure that you have at least 7, 8, 9 players from these big teams, and you have some enablers from the other teams who have potentially good fixtures. And again, when we're talking about stats, why are stats important, right? Because preseason is like 2 3 games. You can watch the strategy changing a little bit here and there, but hard to judge a team or a player based on those 2 3 games sometimes. But last season's data is the bigger chunk of data, right? So at least it gives us a better speculation of what we can expect from all these teams and all these players this season. So that's why we are using last season's data as a bigger chunk of population of data essentially. All right. Anything else you guys want to add on the fixtures?
No, I think it's well put. So we can move on.
Okay. All right. Okay. So first thing first, we'll kind of look at some of the key stats. So when we are building our game week one squad, we are looking at all the players. So how do we pick the players, right? How do we choose the players? And as I said in the beginning, we are more data oriented people. All three of us are kind of. Again, we do watch games, so it's not like that we don't watch games or we don't value eye test at all. We absolutely do. There is value of eye test, but we are data dominant. So let's talk about goalkeepers first. Wrangler, you want to take us through the data from the goalkeepers from last season?
Yeah, sure. Right. So yeah, whenever we talk about goalkeeper, right? What we really care. First thing we care that the clean sheet probability, right? That team has, right? And another one is that the bonus, right? The bonus potential. Those are the two things that we usually look, right? And the clean sheet actually comes mostly if your team is good, right? Like defensively. So that's where big teams usually are kind of very much intriguing. But some of the like mid-level teams, right, that we saw in the previous plot, right, Brighton or Brentford, right, they were in the top right quadrant, right. So essentially, that's a good defense as well as a good fixture, right. So here also, like those of you who are kind of following us from last season, right, that in Radar FPL we've been using this 4 quadrant chart, and also if you follow us on Twitter, we have been having this content as well. So we thought really it's really good representation to show like first quadrant you always that's the most expected one, right? That all plus plus, and then second quadrant the top left is kind of in the middle. The bottom left is the red zone that we usually always try to avoid because that's basically like all like minus minus, right? Whenever we see the quadrant, and again the bottom right is kind of also in the middle, right? So we have been doing that, and we see that also in the community people have been kind of using this idea and concept. So we are really glad that we are kind of contributing in that way. But again, from the goalkeeper perspective, here we are showing the X clean sheet per game in the last season. And along y-axis we are looking in the bonus. As I said, for goalkeepers, that's the two things we really care about. And here, if we see in the top right quadrant, right, the first one, that's where we have higher CS probability and also more bonus probability, right? And Allison actually at the very top right, because Liverpool clean sheet probability is pretty high. Their defense is good, and Allison, as we already know, right, he's a bonus monster too, right? So that's the thing. And then Ramsdale comes, and here also we have color coded in that way. The darker is the highly priced, like Allison, while as it goes to like to golden-ish, that's kind of like lower price. So that's where like Ramsdale, Loris, or Guaita comes, right? Now we have to see the fixture as well. So we talked about like Brentford and Brighton who had good fixture, and if you see for Sanchez and Raya, they actually have good clean sheet potential, right? Because their defense has been good. Bonus wise, they are not really very encouraging, but again, the fixture looks good for them at least this first 8 games, right? So that's why they are kind of more interesting here. And if you see Ederson and Mendy, like the Chelsea and City, their clean sheet potential is pretty high, but those people are not really getting a lot of bonus, and their defense is pretty good, right? So those keeper really don't have to do much of things here, right? So essentially, again, the bottom left are kind of probably avoid. Although Melier, the Leeds fixture looks good, but again, I think we have better options than them, like Sanchez or Raya. So Ramsdale kind of, as you see also, it's a very popular one right now in the community as well, because Arsenal fixture look good. He has really very good bonus potential as well. But again, Sanchez or Raya are not very behind too, because they are zero point 0.5 million cheaper, where you can, which you can use elsewhere maybe. So I think there's are the three picks I can think of. One thing I also want to mention, Pope, right? He's in the top left, but that's the clean sheet potential we had in for Burnley, right?
Hmm.
But if you see Dubravka, which is basically right now Newcastle, then Pope would be actually very close to in the first quadrant actually, where
Yep.
Dubravka is, right? So then Pope could be a very good shout as well, because Newcastle first few games picture is really not bad, and he has good bonus potential too. So those are the things we'd like to highlight. And do you want to anything else? Add anything, Kante or
No, I
Ravi?
think you covered it well. Couple of things maybe we can touch on Sanchez. Twin Bhai is asking like Bisuma leaving and then Kukurea leaving. Does that impact Sanchez, right? So I mean, at least for me, I don't think it would do a whole lot because I kind of trust Potter's system, right? He has been very consistent over the last few seasons. Players have come in and gone out, but he has kind of maintained that standard all through. So I trust in Potter, right, more than his players. I actually trust in the coach more in this scenario. Sanchez is a decent goalkeeper. He's not like fantastic, but he's a decent goalkeeper. He doesn't make. He's not too error prone, at least, right, in comparison to some of the other goalkeepers in the league. So I would still back Sanchez probably over any of the other 4.5 million goalkeepers. As you said, I think Ramsdale for me is probably the guy to go. Ramsdale or Pope. Again, as you said, Newcastle improving defense and so on, and Pope being a good goalkeeper too. So if you have allocated 5 million for the goalkeeper, Ramsdale or Pope, I think are the guys to go for. If you have 4.5, it's more Sanchez, maybe Raya if someone wants to go there. ZD, you want to add anything?
No, I just had a question to Wrangler. For Raya, did you consider the matches that Raya missed? I think when Raya played, Brentford got more CS. How the stat is like just a question, you know.
Yeah, I think this comes from the games only when Raya played, if I'm not
Okay,
wrong, right, Wrangler? So yeah,
or
so
this
that
it is a team
no, I think
price.
it's
Okay,
Yeah. So it's kind of
yeah,
it's per game, right? So every play, yeah,
okay.
yeah. So I think it
yeah.
covers the
Whenever he
games
plays,
only when
yeah.
Raya actually played. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So I don't see with the fixtures I prefer Amstel over Pope. Yeah, I agree with Nehal. I think I also prefer Ramsdale slightly over Pope in that 5 million bracket, and I also probably trust Arsenal defense more than Newcastle's as well. Anything else on the goalkeepers? Otherwise, we can move on to the defenders. Okay. All right, defenders. First chart is kind of more value, right? We have some fantastic wing backs at 7.5, 7 million, 6 million bracket, but there are a lot of defenders this season. They were kindly priced at around that 4.5, 5 million ish range as well, right? So value is important, of course. Again, as you were saying before, when you were building a team, you want a nice balance of both. You want the best players, but you also want some of the value players, right? So Wrangler, you want to quickly talk about this chart, how we can explain this?
Yeah, we'd like to just kind of cover this. Can you guys hear me clear?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Yeah, so we'll try to kind of briefly cover here, as you said, right? Kind of value here. So along the x-axis, it's points per game, and along the y-axis is points per game per million, right? So as you can see, Robertson and Trent, they are on like in their own world, right? So that's the value. We are so fortunate that Trent is 7.5 really, and Robertson as well. Um, so and then it comes like James, Cancelo, right? So one thing I would like to highlight, Kante, if you just kind of draw that like diagonal, right, diagonal line. So basically at each
Oops.
price point, right, that Cancelo
Mhm,
and Robertson, right, so they are at the same
mhm,
price point, but Robertson actually has like more points per game, right? So essentially, um, at least based on the previous data, as you can see, right, that Robertson um, is probably a better pick than Cancelo, although Cancelo is pretty good too, right? We cannot avoid him.
mhm,
And then again, along the 6 million price bracket, right? Uh, Diaz, Laporte, James, Matip. Now,
mhm,
Matip, I don't think it's an interesting one because we have a lot of other third spot for Liverpool, right? Third spot options. So Matip is out
mhm,
of the plate here. But there is a kind of debate or kind of dilemma here that should we pick Diaz or James. Diaz is definitely like probably kind of a secured pick, but James, the holdability potential that he had right before, right? So I know he's gonna play probably right center back, but if whenever he plays right wing back, it's gonna be a massive like
mhm,
explosion. But anyways, at that price bracket, as you can see, James is having like more point per game than Diaz. Similarly, at five, Tierney is kind of injured. Again, if you draw the diagonal line, right, at that
mhm,
price bracket, Tierney is right now injured. But again, Walker is a really good shout, right? And I think since Cucurella sign didn't go through, I think now Walker minute is probably has like chances better than
at
previous
least
that we
for the
thought.
first few
And I
games, yeah.
know
Yeah.
at least for exactly right. I mean, until they buy a new
Mhm,
left wing back, right? But I know Kante, you have been also like hot on Walker because I mean, if you go to the 3 million draft, right? In that case, you have to do some sort of compromise, right?
mhm,
And the hope is there is that Walker will be probably able to cover like Cancelo, right? And if you see point per gallon, sorry, point per game per million, he's really pretty good. It's just you have to see that the difference, that points per game that you have
mhm.
between Cancelo and Walker. So that 2 million extra that you are going to use in elsewhere, you have to also match up that the difference that you have between Walker and Cancelo, right?
Correct.
Otherwise, at 4.5, itinerary is another good options. We know that old fixture is really good, and Regulon is out of the topic right now, but itinerary is at 4.5 is really good if you see the
Mhm,
diagonal line. So
yeah.
yeah, that's kind of like the previous data, and in the next slide we are gonna see that their attacking return potential as well, right? So that's it. So
Okay,
I think
let's move
yeah,
on to the
I mean
next one then, and
defense
then
have
we
very
can.
good values this season. We were so fortunate about it. So.
Yeah. All right. So this one is kind of uh, complementing the other one, right? So what here we are looking at is what the attacking return possibility from a defender is. And again, from FPL, of course, we want all the clean sheet points, right? Good teams, good more clean sheets. But at the same time, we want the holability, right? So we want some attacking returns from these players as well. So the way I'm looking at it essentially is that Uh, of course, for defenders, goals are a lot more valuable, double the value than the assist. So some of the defenders, they score more goals, right? More likely, like the center backs and so on, or some of the wing backs like James or Chilwell, right? Trent is more assist potential more than his goal threat. But anyway, so we kind of normalize that through what we call is basically X point attacking return, right? So basically, if you get 6 points per XG and 3 points per XA, that's essentially the idea. So that's what this plot is. So as you would expect, again on the first quadrant, we have all the good assets essentially, right? Trent, the Cancelos, Chilwell is there, although he didn't play a whole lot of the last season. We have Robertson, of course, there up there. Laporte is up there. Even Diaz is up there. And then on the left we have basically, because we have on the x-axis we have minutes, so Reese had a lot of injury concerns. He had kind of early subs, or sometimes he just got subbed in later in the game as well. Same thing for Doherty, but they are like phenomenal attacking assets, right? Even though they're defenders, but they are like always attacking. And again, the way you can kind of interpret it, that they are getting approximately 1.5 attacking point per game, which is equivalent to scoring a goal every 4 games. So if you are getting a goal from a defender every 4 games, how do you like ignore them, right? It's almost impossible to ignore, especially Reese and Chilwell, given their price, right? 6 million. They are again very, very kindly priced. Even Trent was kindly priced, right, at 7.5 million, given his potential. So it's just, I mean, everyone knows. I literally nothing to add, but just that point to add that if X minutes are secure, you want to go for the more higher ceiling defenders, right? Especially given, as Wrangler was saying, like Diaz versus James. And that's something that I also have been in doubt for some time. And when I talk about my team, I'll talk about that, touch on that. Of course, we want the Man City defender because they have better fixtures defensively in the first few weeks. But James's haulability is just so much more higher than Diaz at the same price, right? So he's just super duper value if his X minutes are secured. Same thing for Doherty, right? So he was very good last season whenever he played. Even I think Region is somewhere here as well on this, right? So on this second quadrant. Of course, he is going out, but now we have Perisic. So I was looking at Perisic's record from last season. He had like zero point 0.4 plus XGI over the last 2 seasons when he was playing as a left wing back, right? So in contest system also, he's essentially playing as a left wing back. So I mean, there is no denying that there is a lot of value in there, right? With Doherty, with Perisic, with James and Chilwell. Again, as we looked when we were looking at the fixture ticker, neither Tottenham or Chelsea have the best of the fixtures defensively, but because their attacking possibility or their attacking return possibility is so much more higher, you have to kind of consider them, right? And again, when we talk about our teams, you'll see that we are considering these players, right? Exactly because of that. One thing interesting is uh, Zinchenko, right? So Tierney is probably not 100% fit. Zinchenko came from Man City. He, like, I think played like barely 70 games overall over the span of 5 years or something. So I'm pretty sure in Arsenal he has more guarantee for minutes. If and when Tierney is injured, Zinchenko will play left back. When Tierney is back, there is still a possibility that he will play in the central midfield, right? Because of his versatility. So Zinchenko could be another very interesting asset at 5 million. So again, there are tons of options, right? 5 million bracket. Uh, we have Trippier, we have Cash. Again, some of them have very good fixtures. Trippier was interesting, right? So there is a lot of hype about Trippier in the community, but his attacking returns are not necessarily that great. Like even throughout his career, he has scored like 10 goals overall, and most of them are from free kicks. So there are no guarantee that like it looks good from an eye test. He always kind of looks good, but his attacking returns are not quite there. Matt Cash was great, right, last season, especially like he was getting into the box, scoring goals later into the season, kind of the mid-season time frame. They're good options, right? So if you are unsure about like the X minutes of Walker or Doherty, not the worst thing to get in a Trippier or Cash because they are more nailed in their teams, right? So that's an option. For the first few weeks, you get a Trippier, you get a Walker, but as soon as you are sure about the minutes of a Doherty or a Walker, you probably would want to go there because they play for a better team, more attacking threat, and so on. All right. So that's basically it. Anything else that you guys want to add, ZD or Angler? Good
I
to
think
move
you
on.
covered it pretty well. So yeah, go ahead, Zidi. Do you have anything
No,
to
no,
add?
yeah, you covered very well. um yeah, I think people have some doubt about Rhys James. Ben Chilwell is like he needs some time, but I think Rhys James, um I mean, with this price you can, they have like higher probability of goal, and
Mhm.
obviously they plays for the best defense as well. So I think it's worth the money for to spend the money like among these players, right?
Money well spent. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Okay. So
I wanted to cover
that's,
one thing.
yeah,
Kante,
sure.
just
Go ahead.
wanted to, yeah. So yeah, again, you covered it pretty well about Perisic and Trippier. One thing again, as I mentioned before, also like you had another plot, including attacking attackers as well in the same, right? So if you see, right, X return, or it's kind of only return, right? I mean attacking
Mhm.
return. Clean sheet is not added here, and it's like 1.6 or something like that, right?
Mhm.
Usually the good attackers like say Mount or like Saka in that price range, they are like in the like 3.5 each, if I'm not wrong, Kante, right? So
Yeah.
in that range. Now the good teams, right? The Liverpool, like Chelsea or Spurs, they had like around 50% of the time they have clean sheet. Like last season, I think Liverpool got like 19 clean sheet or 21, I
Mhm.
forgot. At that rate, even more than 50%, right? Now, if you add that 50%, that means like each clean sheet we get 4 points, right? Forget about the bonus. Now, 50% means 2 points. So if you add that 1.6 plus 2, it becomes 3.6, points per 90, which kind of match or even sometimes better than the the attackers
Attackers.
even.
Mhm.
So just wanted to mention that there is a very good value there in the defense. I mean, um, again, that's why you see, right? I mean, not always the big at the back, but at least there are 3 to 4 defenders you cannot ignore. You have to get them because they have like the potential to get at like returns even better than a lot of midfielders or attackers. So just wanted to mention that
Yeah.
here.
Good point. Good point. All right. So we have some questions regarding Chelsea. So we have a small Chelsea section. So we'll talk about it when we come to that. So before that, let's talk about the attackers. Wrangler, you want to take us through this again?
Yeah, so now in terms of attackers, we kind of clubbed the forwards and midfield together. Now here along x-axis is the price in this current season, and along y-axis is the non-penalty xg plus xa. Now again in the top right quadrant is basically you have value like low price as well as they have higher like attacking potential. The left one is basically higher price, like the Sala, right? All the premiums they are actually top left because they have like higher attacking potential as well as they are highly priced. Again, the bottom left is the no-go zone. Unfortunately, we don't have anyone really in that zone. To be honest, some of them are in the borderline, but at least we are. I mean, data actually backs up that. To be honest, right? That the premiums are premium for a reason. We always say that, right? Because their attacking potential is so good. That's why they are priced so high. If you see Salah, he's like can be no word, right? It's out of the world. And in the bottom right, it's kind of low price, and I mean, since they are low price, your expectation is low too, right? They have less attacking potential. Now, I'm going to actually start with the top left first because Salah, I mean, there is nothing to talk about. There is non-penalty XG. If you add penalty here, it's going to be more than one, by the way. So every game he has returned, and it's very difficult to ignore him, right? Haaland's data is taken from previous years, whenever he was in Dortmund, and he was actually matching as close as Salah. And if you add the penalty, it's even also more than one. So he and Salah are in the same level. De Bruyne and Son, they are actually having the same, and Kane also like 11.5. So if you see like Kane and Holland, there are some difference, but again, I mean Haaland was playing in the Bundesliga, we know that, so we'll see how it goes this season. But again, the premiums, there is a reason they are actually in that their expected goal involvement is pretty high. Another player I want to touch here is Sterling. He had some issues with nailness, but since now he's in the Chelsea, we can expect that his minutes will be more secured. And if you see his number, is pretty good, right? So that's another player to look. We'll talk about in the Chelsea. I mean, talk about him in the Chelsea section as well. Diego Jota, unfortunately, he's injured, but his number is pretty good. Okay, now let's go to the top right. That's the most interesting one because they're kind of low priced, like mid level or even like less than 8.5, but they have like high attacking potential. And Jesus, if you see, he is actually matching like Sterling, Ronaldo, Son, De Bruyne, Kane. And again, these non-penalty XG. Okay, and if he takes penalty, then he can do the math. So the hype that we see for Jesus, yes, he has been doing pretty good in the preseason. But again, there is a if you see here, right, the data and the eye test kind of, there is a very good marriage here, right? They always kind of have a they're very much coherent with each other. And Jesus hype is really real. It's very difficult to ignore him if you see the number. Another player I wanted to highlight here is Martinelli, and there is also another reason to go for him. If you see here, he's at 6 million price bracket, but I mean his attacking potential is pretty high, right? In the top right. There are a few other players who are not available here because I filtered 1700 minutes, which is kind of 18 game or like 50% time of the season. So Kulusevski, Diaz, and Mahrez is not here. If I would add at their stat, they would be in the top right corner again. Okay, so Kulu is like zero point 0.5 or something like that, but as we know, right, he's like attack or goal involvement was kind of overperformed because of Son, because Son overperformed, right, in terms of goal. But Diaz and Mahrez, they are pretty good. So Mahrez was not really sharp in the preseason, so definitely watch. But Diaz definitely a good option, and we know that. So yeah, those are the players I wanted to highlight. Do you want to add anything here, Zidi or Kante? I think you're on mute, Kante.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was. So yeah, well, just one thing that maybe ZD you can answer. So it was kind of a burning question a couple weeks ago, right? Who is the best 8 million bracket midfielder? It's probably not anymore because of all the other cheaper midfielders that have arrived, but it's still a question probably for the community, right? So based on this or based on overall whatever you have seen in the preseason, how do you rank, say, the top three 8 million midfielders? Who would be your top three? I know
Uh,
it's a tough question. It's a very tough question
yeah,
given
still it's a
experience.
very tough question because I know it's question from all of the community and everyone is confused about it. But actually, for me, for some reason, I am inclined to Madison more than anyone because I think he was in the super form, like when like
Later
uh,
half of the season. Yeah.
yeah, later half of the season, and he's also in good form, like in the
Preseason.
preseason as well. And Lister's picture is not that bad, and yeah, he's plays in number 10 role. So I really like him actually. And for me, I mean, for my team, actually, I like him more than anyone else. Then I think Arsenal looks phenomenal. That's why Saka is considerable, and I mean he's in top form. His stats is getting better, uh, like each season by season. So
Yeah.
he's the other one. Although I am actually confused, I am not going to take him because one of the most reason is Jesus and
Mhm.
Martinelli. They are very good in their price range, and they looks like um, more attacking,
Mhm.
right? So and also Pistol. The first game is, I think, that is a difficult game for Arsenal. So
Yeah.
that's another reason. But Saka is obviously for long term. He's not bad asset. And third one, obviously, it will be uh, Mount. Mount is very good one if you want to cover from Chelsea and their fixture. Actually, in the long term, they have very good fixture. So
Hmm.
he could be a keep and forget guy, like in 8 million. And he's another guy along with Saka who is um, like improving season by season, right? And he's like in free kick, corner, everything. So I like Mount as well as a third pick. And Diaz, I mean, after seeing all of these and like, too many options in Liverpool, I'm not. I think Diaz is like wait and see right now.
Hmm.
These three guys are like more better options for me right now.
Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. Good answer. All right. If there is nothing else on this one, we can move on, Wrangler. Right?
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay. All right, so that was basically our stat section, kind of our rationale to kind of when we are picking the players. Of course, we are looking at the numbers from the previous season, kind of trying to understand how involved they are, in addition to how they are performing in the preseason, whether there is any strategical change to the team, or if the coach is saying something in the press conference, right? That's probably more important than anything else. So please do look out for the press conferences over the next couple of days, what the coaches say about the players' fitness, their strategies. That's going to be more important than any of this, right? So please do look out for that. All right. So next, we are kind of going to answer some of the, or at least try to answer some of the dilemmas that the community has pre-game week one. A lot of them will probably be unanswered, even from us, unresolved. But we'll try to at least touch on what do we think, what our opinion is. First question is Kane versus Haaland, right? So again, we briefly touched this when we were talking to Jamie in the in our first preseason video. Uh, he is a very kind of big supporter of Kane, right? He wants to absolutely start with Kane. The fixtures are there, other than barring the game week two fixture against Chelsea away. The fixtures are there all the way up to game week six. Game week seven is, of course, against Man City. That's where Kane and Haaland faces each other. But overall, the fixtures look good. Man City, they are again the best team, and I know Wrangler, you did a lot of work to kind of figure out how did Man City used to play when they were with Aguero, right? They when they have a proper number nine, they become the focus of their attack, right? They just become a different team, right? So same thing with Haaland. We expect that to happen, and in the Community Shield we saw that, right? Although Man City lost, but Haaland managed to accumulate an XG of 1.6 against the second best defense in the league. So you can imagine what you do to like a Bournemouth or a Nottingham Forest. So it's that's basically the question, right? So we all know what Kane can do. We have seen him perform in EPL for years and years. Haaland is one of the best strikers in the world. Both of these guys are probably in the top four, easily in the top four in the whole world, alongside Benzema and Lewandowski at this point of time for best strikers in the world. So how do you decide? So Wrangler, do you want to at least try to resolve that puzzle? Who do we go with in game week one, Kane or Haaland?
It's so difficult. It's kind of $1 million question, really. But yeah, I mean, again, there is nothing wrong here. Actually, both of them are really good. I mean, really. I mean, whatever you feel, first of all, like go for them because both of them are really good pick. Their, fixture are really good. Holland, I mean, as Kante was mentioned, right? Mentioning that when Aguero was there in Man City, basically Aguero was the top goal scorer in 5 times out of last six seasons whenever he was there, and he was the like highlight, and essentially they got again another number nine here, right? They might
Mhm.
need some time again because recently or last season or two they were like started playing with like false nine, right? But again, they have to kind of again bring that and 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, right? If I mean, we can see that Phillips signing that makes sense now, because during Aguero time 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 was really very popular formation. But again, coming back to Haaland, he looked really good. Again, he had 1.6 xg. I don't know how come he missed that goal. But
Mhm.
again, right, as you mentioned, against Liverpool side, if he can get this chance against Bournemouth, we really don't know. Bournemouth is very depleted, right? We know that, right? And that's the problem here. I think, like, if Bournemouth would not be here in the second fixture, I think people would probably go for Kane, because
Mhm.
I mean, Kane has all the, like, positive side. Nailness, he looks sharp. In preseason, he scored lots of goal and assists. The fixture looked good. Just the second fixture is Chelsea, while Haaland is playing Bournemouth, and that's where actually it becomes a, like, difference here. I think otherwise Kane would be a better shot. So I'm right now on Haaland, but again, as I said, there is really nothing wrong here. Both of them are really good picks, I think. And
Yeah.
just go with it. And people are kind of thinking of hokey cookie as well, like, first going with Kane, and then Haaland. I don't know. It's kind of like every transfer is 4 point, right? So if in that case, Kane has to kind of have a brace, right, to match that.
Yeah.
And I think Baker mentioned in above as FPL, right, that I mean, you can do that, but again, you'll be chasing, because in the second game week, people already have Haaland, but you are having a transfer to get Haaland here, right? So it's kind of already you are one transfer behind than other people, right? Which I actually like that. So again, I'm on the Haaland board, but there is nothing wrong here. I mean, I don't know if I was able to convince, but I uh, I wish I could convince myself. But again, you know, uh, that's
Yeah.
what I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's a very tough decision. I am slightly on the Haaland side, I would say, because especially because of that Bournemouth fixture in game week 2. You don't want to book in a fixture for game week 2 ideally, even if this season is a little different. You are probably wildcarding early and so on. Um, but you prefer not to do that, right? At least make sure that you have your other transfers sorted out. Anything can happen, right? You never know. So I am slightly on the side of Haaland because of that Bournemouth fixture, and hope that he does something against West Ham, which he easily can, right? Absolutely can. Um, just hope that he can at least get near to whatever Kane does against Southampton, right? That would basically be the hope. But yeah, I would say 55-45 on Haaland's side. How about you, ZD?
No, I think you guys said really well. I agree with Wrangler. It's very difficult, of course, but currently I am leaned towards Kane to start with. But
Mm-hmm.
of course, it is difficult decision not to go with Haaland in the second picture, and also it's not preferable to do the hockey cookie. But it's, I mean, sometimes you might need to do that, right? So
Yeah.
it's, yeah, I mean, there is nothing wrong,
No,
right, wrong over
absolutely not.
here. That's the issue. I mean, Kane is like in very good form, and Man City's first picture is, it's difficult one in away game, West Ham, and Haaland is settling down actually. If he's like,
Mm-hmm.
I think obviously probably after sometimes if he can stay injury free, I mean he will have the most ownership, of course. So,
Mm-hmm.
but right now I think Kane is in good form, very good form to ignore. So right now I'm with Kane, but
Okay.
there is nothing wrong with going with Haaland, of course.
Yeah, yeah, fair, fair. Yeah. So two Haalands, one Kane, but I don't think it's a win or lose essentially. So you can go either way, and I don't think there is necessarily a right or wrong here, right? You just pick one and expect that he does well, right? And it could be the same for Son versus KDB too, right? If someone wants to get in a midfielder for 0.5 million more, same thing, right? Son, KDB, both proven assets in EPL. You pick one, hope that they at least do well in the first two game weeks, outscore the other one, and then just take it from there, right? Decide in game week 3 what you want to do with them. All right, so let's move on to the next But next question, we already kind of spoke about this, so I don't think we need to spend too much time on this. We spent a lot of time on this on our Liverpool video as well. Nehal spoke a lot about Diaz's prospect, Robertson prospect. Nunes is kind of more new hype, right? After the Community Shield, especially. So he was in the field for about 30 minutes or so, right? But he hogged all the big chances again against the big best defense in the league, right? So that's what's kind of creating the hype. Uh, so how do we rank these three guys? So maybe I'll just go first. I think again because Robo is a proven APL asset. Robo one from an attacking perspective, when we know how the X minutes look like for Diaz and Nunez, I am slightly on the side, or not slightly, I'm a lot more on the side of Nunez. I think he's worth the 1 million more over Diaz when time comes. And of course, we'll have more information. So, Robertson, safer pick when time comes for the second Liverpool attacker alongside Salah. I would prefer Nunez. How about you, ZD?
I'm with Robertson, of course, and second choice is Nunes. Actually, it's very hard to go without Nunes, but after seeing that game, but again, it's very early to say, right? And Jota is coming back as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wrangler, how about you?
Yeah, I'm also on Robertson boat because even in the community shield, right, he was so advanced, right? So whenever Diaz actually cutting into the box, he was actually also kind of going forward, and he also had an assist that Nunes, whenever Nunes scored, right? So I
Mm-hmm,
really see that. Like, I mean, he's 2 million cheaper. Diaz and Nunes, both of them are very good option, and that is really, guys, a 50-50 call here. Whenever we say 50-50 call in the same team, you think that who can I mean, who could be a good option, and there is nothing wrong and right. It's just like
yeah.
which part of the variance you fall into, and again it's a 50-50, and I would recommend or so kind of like suggest people is that whenever it's a 50-50, then just don't jump off from your 50 whenever other 50 halls. Wait for your 50s haul too, because it's a 50-50. It's statistical, right? I mean, statistical thing. So
Mm-hmm,
unless your 50 is completely like, there's no involvement, there is kind of injury or other thing, then it's a different thing. But I think if you do jump off very early from your 50, you might lose like actually all basically 100, right?
yeah,
So
absolutely.
again,
Very good point.
yeah, so Robertson for me and Diaz is really good. Nunes, he looked very sharp, and I think at some point he's gonna be really a baller. Okay, and I think it's kind of a like wait and watch because again, we have to see how everything. He's probably gonna start. We'll see the press conference, but again, we have to kind of wait and see.
Mhm.
That's where I'm at. Robertson, Diaz, and Nunes. That's the my preference here.
Okay, all fair, all fair. So again, I mean, it of course, kind of as Wrangler also said, depends on your risk appetite, right? So if you are a little more risky in your play pattern, pick Nunez or Diaz, but you have to kind of stick with your guns as well, right? If Robertson starts hauling, just don't jump off straight away. Make you have a valid reason to pick Diaz or Nunez over Robo, right? So just stick with your choice for a few weeks there. Again, Liverpool are one of the best teams. They will get their returns. So if you do get them in, don't jump off right away. All right, next one. Again, we briefly spoke about this when we were talking about Arsenal and Wolves assets with Yogesh and Dan. Uh, and it's not necessarily one versus the other, right? So when we were talking about the price points and so on, of course, the big teams have the best fixtures. But at the same time, you want these enablers, some of these cheaper enablers, to make sure that you can get all the big shots in your team as well, right? So it could be all three of them, or all two of them, or maybe one of them, whatever makes the your team structure the best, right? But at least from a preseason standpoint, they were all on fire, right? They were firing in all cylinders. Martinelli got goals and assists. Neto got goals and assists. Bailey was like out with injury. Actually, both Neto and Bailey were out with injury last season a whole lot. But both of them kind of Neto 100%. At least I would say. I mean, it's hard to say, as Dan also says, it's hard to say nailed or not, but he is pretty much sure to get a place in that Wolves team, especially given that Jimenez is also injured now. Bailey, I mean, his minutes are a little more concerned. If he does not perform up to the mark a game or two, there are lots of other options in Villa. Right? There is Coutinho, Buendia, Traore, lots of other guys waiting to get in, right? So uh, again, but he is at 5 million, right? So you can take that chance. So he's just 0.5 million over the minimum price for a midfielder, right? So if you have that spot, there is no problem going there, right? And as from a fixture standpoint, all of them have pretty good fixtures until game week 4. Game week 3 is a little problematic, maybe for Wolves and Aston Villa. Wolves plays Tottenham away and Aston Villa plays Crystal Palace away. But at the same time, they are both playable fixture, right? You don't necessarily have to 100% bench Neto or Bailey versus Tottenham or Crystal Palace. Arsenal's first fixture is a little more on the difficult side, but Martinelli's fixtures, I mean, Arsenal's fixtures look really good all the way through up to game week 8. So Martinelli, I think, is a little longer term hold given his price point also. You probably don't want to jump off him until there is someone else emerging at that price bracket, or maybe at a bigger price bracket as we were talking about before the video. If someone emerges at 8 million, right, who is really good value, that's the only reason that you probably would want to jump off Martinelli, right? Neto is also a pretty good hold until game week 6. If you even are wildcarding at around game week 8 or so, there are probably other bench players or other rotation players that you can manage to keep Neto in and make your transfers elsewhere. Bailey is again probably the more kind of risky kind of player in that sense, based on his X minutes and also the fixtures, because after game week 4 it kind of turns pretty bad. Arsenal and Man City back to back. Leicester and Southampton are not that bad in 7 and 8. If you can hold him, great. If you cannot, um, I mean, it's one of those things that it's he doesn't have a good exit route in that price bracket, right? 5 million. We don't have a whole lot of other midfielders. Maybe Dewsbury Hall, but that's about it. Not too many options there. So that's one downside with Bailey. But I mean, overall, there are necessarily no cons with either of these, right? All good players, very involved in the attack for their team, especially for their price. You cannot go wrong, right? Anything that you guys want to add on this, Wrangler?
Yeah, as you mentioned, right? I mean, we are so blessed that we have these enablers, right? Who are good at their price, but they're also like enabling us to get premiums as well, right? So
Mhm.
Martinelli, we already saw his stats, right? And Arsenal fan Derek actually sent me one video clip about Martinelli a few days ago. So whenever he was 7, his father actually told him that you have to get this World Cup, like I mean, you have to uh, get a chance in Brazil team in 2022. you
Mhm.
know he was as a 7, and there's the, like, in Brazil, those are the things they have in their mind, right? And
Mhm.
he's really very keen to get his position in Brazil team, and the World Cup is soon, and I think he'll be very hungry to prove himself. And we are also so fortunate here that, like, Smith Rowe is injured right now, right? So at least this is the time that you get Martinelli. You can assess, right? Because he's made his number is good, so we'll be able to see him. And then whenever this Smith Rowe comes, we'll see how it goes, and depending on the Martinelli's performance as well. But he's really good. Neto, nothing to say. As you said, this is, I mean, last season he was injured, but his number was really good. And I mean, he just follow Black Wolf, that the Mr. Wolves, whenever he say, we listen. And like Jimenez is out, but again, he has been very involved. Portens is playing false nine, but it's still like he was very involved as well. Whenever Portens is going kind of a deeper role, he was in the box too, right? And he had pretty good preseason. Bailey was really baller, as you had a tweet. I remember his last, I think, 3 or 4 season. His non penalty XGI was zero point 0.5 plus. So
Mhm.
at 5 million price, right? Zero point 0.5 XGI means like in every other game you actually get returns, right? And
Yeah.
Villa has very good fixture at his first few. So all of them are really good, you know. And again, as I said, I mean, I'm gonna actually have both of them. You see my draft. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
mean, especially with Bailey, he came with a big reputation, right, from Germany to Aston Villa. Just that last season was he was out with an injury for most of the time. But don't judge him based on that, or don't judge him based on his 5 million price tag either, right? If he gets minutes, I think he absolutely can deliver, and he is worth the money. Absolutely worth the money is given that he's 5 million. So yeah, anything ZD you want
he
to
had
add?
17 last season. He had 17 returns, 8 goal, 9 assists.
It's the season before. Yeah, the season before last year.
Sorry, yeah, season before. Right.
No,
ZD.
I like all of them. I have all of them as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, they are
We
very
all
good
like
enabler.
enablers, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, they are very good enabler, and they are in good form as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I think everyone needs to at least two of them probably, given the pricing this year.
Hmm. All right. All right. Okay, so let's go to the next one, the last of our kind of community dilemmas. What to do with Chelsea, right? So, and unfortunately, we could not do a separate video on Chelsea. We just ran out of time. We thought about it, but just kind of briefly touching on it, we did talk about Reese and Chilwell in our defender slide. We spoke about how much value they offer, right, at their price. Both are priced at 6 million. They're just incredibly attacking, right? So Chelsea, although it looks like a 5-2-3 team, but when they're attacking, these defenders are essentially the fourth and fifth attackers. So it's as simple as that. So it's very hard to ignore them if you know their minutes. There is a slight concern, and I think someone was asking whether James playing an RCB role is a concern. It is. It is to some extent. So of course, Kukurea got in today, so that transfer kind of seems confirmed, not 100% yet, but hopefully it will go through. So if he comes in, I think it kind of increases the probability for James to play right wing back more, because when needed, he can play as the left center back. I mean, Kukurea. So it, if anything, it increases the possibility for James to play right wing back more. And of course, Chelsea is still in the market to buy another right center back, right? Potentially Fofana. They did offer like 75 million euro to Leicester, and for some reason they denied it. So I don't know how much money they really want for him, or maybe they just don't want to sell him. Who knows? But Chelsea will very likely, before the transfer window ends. And remember, there is still a month to go, right? So I think the transfer window ends end of this month, end of August. So there is still plenty of time for Chelsea to get in another center back. uh, so yeah, I mean, in the first few weeks, maybe a little bit of dilemma given their preseason form, the 4-0 loss against Arsenal. But now that Koulibaly is in, Kukurea is in, I think Tuchel is good enough manager to kind of take his time in the training session and manage everything, kind of bring back last season's defensive form and everything, although Rudiger is gone. But I think Chelsea will be okay. So first few fixtures, if you don't want to take the chance, maybe if you are more risk averse, you just go with a Diaz or something like that, and then get into a James or Chilwell or Kukurea could be like a game breaker, right? A Chelsea defender, left wing back at 5 million could be a complete game breaker. So maybe wait for that, but I think Reese is, even given everything else, is out and out the best Chelsea asset right now over everything else. You just cannot deny that at 6 million he is a much better asset than anyone else literally in that team right now if he gets his minutes. Um, Mount is a good asset, right? We spoke about him in the when we were talking about midfielders. His numbers look good. He is a very decent asset, and he kind of trickles through generally. Last season was a little different. He was kind of doing very well against the bottom feeders, right? Like the Norwiches and
Yes,
etc.
definitely.
etc. But generally speaking, his average returns are always there, right? He's always out there whenever Chelsea is attacking. He's involved. So Mount is a decent asset, but that's about it for me, right? So if we are talking about a Chelsea asset, it has to be Reese or Mount. maybe recent Mount if you want to double up on Chelsea. Sterling, as again Wrangler was saying, his numbers are absolutely phenomenal for Man City, and you would expect that anyone playing for Man City, whether or not he can replicate that for Chelsea is maybe a little bit of wait and watch. His price point is a little kind of awkward as well at 10 million. It's actually a pretty good price point. Once we know that he starts to return, it's basically you're getting a premium at 10 million, right? So it's actually a nice price bracket as well. But just that we don't know where he will play, how he'll integrate. He didn't look like super duper integrated in the preseason. The last match he looked better, sharper at least. But I think it's still kind of wait and watch given all the other assets and resources that we have at our hand. Um, I think it's again Reese or Mount or Reese and Mount. Everyone else is wait and watch essentially. But that's about it for Chelsea, right? So I'm not too worried about Chelsea being like declining team, like all of a sudden becoming like a mid-table team or something like that. And we are making all the right transfers, right, to make sure that we whatever wherever our gaps where we are kind of trying to fill those up. So I'm pretty sure Chelsea will do good throughout the season. Anything that you guys want to add?
I think there is a question from Rajesh that Mendy is a good choice as a goalkeeper.
I can take that. For me, no. So at 5 million, I think there are better options as we when we're talking about the goalkeepers. I think both Ramsdale and Pope are better assets as a goalkeeper. Mendy is good. I mean, Chelsea's defense is good, but just that Chelsea doesn't concede a whole lot of chances. The number of chances are very low, so Mendy barely has to make any saves. So his bonus potential is almost zero. His save potential is close to zero. So you just don't get anything other than clean sheets out of a 5 million goalkeeper. You don't want that, right? So you want a little more. At least Ramsdale seems to save more shots, so there are significant point advantage over there. See, if you are absolutely in for a 5 million goalkeeper, I would go for a Ramsdale or even a Pope over Mendy any day.
So I would like to,
As yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. Did you wanted to say something?
No, no, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, like again, Derek's question, right? That regions playing right center back, right? If he's a concern. So again, as you were saying, right, the alternative option that we have at that price range is like Diaz, right? Chilwell is now we are kind of in doubt, right?
Mhm.
Now Diaz also a center back, right? So if you think in that way, so now yes, decisions can play like center back, and that's good for the Chelsea and for him as well because he needs to be fit by the way, right? Now, just think, yeah, he plays. He has secure minute whenever he plays as a right center back. But whenever he plays on top of that as a right wing back, that's when he might have a lot of high potential, and that's where I feel okay. Then why not I take chances with Reece James over Diaz? So that's my
Mhm.
answer. Okay. Now, to answer Charles' question, he also added like Son and KDB. So the thing is like Son and KDB like they're pretty good. I mean, I also like mentioned in tweets several times that KDB will be the person this season, right? I mean, he was very proven during Aguero time. He was the person actually, or he was the player who played number 10 most of the time and kind of delivered the ball, got lots of return, and it's gonna be the same again if he remains fit. And at the same, I mean, at some point in this season, probably will be kind of jumping on to KDB. We'll see, like depending on the like fitness of Haaland as well. Son is always a good pick, but it's just like the 0.5 million price difference. That's the thing here between Kane and Son, and again Haaland and KDB. But they're all good picks, so we'll see. It's now probably kind of wait and watch. But again, I think at some point we're going to pick them, and it's Sterling
Mhm.
again wait and watch. So.
Okay, all right. So let's move on. We're kind of getting to the bottom end of our video today. So just a quick look at the game week one fixtures. Of course, we're talking about building a team for a few weeks, but also we want to kind of make sure that we have the right players for game week one as well, right? Who doesn't want to start with a bang? So of course, there are a few clear-cut fixtures to target. Liverpool versus Fulham. Liverpool away at Fulham, actually. There, Man City is playing away at West Ham as well. Chelsea is also away at Everton, but those are all good fixtures, although they were all away fixtures. Tottenham and versus Southampton. That's one of the fixtures to look out for. Absolutely, that could be easily a goal fest for Tottenham. Some of the other fixtures, Arsenal are also away at Crystal Palace, so not the best fixture given how Crystal Palace did at home last season, especially. So it could be a tough encounter for Arsenal, but should be a good match. Actually, I'm expecting a good match over there. Some of the other games like Leeds versus Wolves or Leicester versus Brentford could really go either way, right? We necessarily don't know how these teams are going to perform, especially Leeds. Wolves did pretty well in the preseason, but it'll be interesting to see how they improve from the last season's performance, especially from an attacking perspective. Leeds still kind of rebuilding under the new coach will be interesting. Leicester and Brentford again. Leicester are kind of, they seem to be in trouble. They're losing a lot of their key players, or talking about losing some of their key players. They're kind of in a financial crisis. So it'll be interesting. I think it'll be a tough year for Leicester. Brentford is an interesting team. Of course, Ericsson is not there anymore, but they bought Damsgaard. So that game is something again I'm looking out for, kind of to see how they settle in game week one. Anything else that catches your eyes, either of your eyes, any fixtures? We'll of course talk about the captaincy next.
No, it's just like I was very hot on Sancho before for Man United, I mean Man United side, but again, the Ronaldo situation is not settled yet, and again, Sancho didn't play last two games, So the
Yeah,
first one, it was like he woke up very poorly, so I was expecting the next game he's gonna play, but again he didn't play, so which kind of
yeah,
felt me iffy, and that kind of put me to kind of off from him. But
yep.
again, I think Marshall, he's gonna probably start, but again, I don't want to take any chances. So Man United just probably wait and see at least until the situation kind of settle down. Otherwise, I think we covered most of them.
What is the Ronaldo situation now? He left, apparently left the stadium at like halftime or something like that.
I think it's not only him. There are a lot of other players as well, and Teno was really not very happy with that. You probably already saw that news or the interview as well. So essentially, like Ronaldo news, basically like he wants to go, but nobody really is willing to
Mhm.
take it. So that's the situation here. So it's
Yep.
kind of I don't know. It's out. I mean, it's nowhere. I feel like probably he's staying because
Yeah.
nobody's really kind of really putting it on.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right. Okay. So let's segue into our captaincy discussion for game week one. ZD, you want to walk us through?
Yeah, so I think we don't have that much data, of course, and all the data is from last year. And I think it's pretty straightforward this year again for the captaincy. It will be Salah will be obviously popular. Of course, it's against Fulham, and Liverpool is in very good mood. They just beat Man City in Community Shield game, and uh, I think of course his EO I expect it would be like very high, right, for Salah. So it will be very tough to go against Salah, and then probably the debate will be Kane. If anyone can have a battle with Salah, that's probably Kane or Son. Both of them are good asset, and uh, whoever have Kane or Son, they might go with against anyone, and it's against Southampton at home. I think uh, both of them, and their stats are also very good, right? And Son is a midfielder, so he has some age, but again, probably people, it's all depends on the formation of who do you have.
Mhm.
So, but if somebody wants to look for like more differential, then I would say probably Vardy. He could be a good differential because Leicester, yeah, they are having some trouble, but their attacking is always good. Whatever situation of their defense, but their attacking is always good. That's why probably Vardy could be an option, but I think it's very less chance. And KDB, he's in very good shape actually. So uh, if I think obviously Man City will try to win the game against West Ham, and um, my favorite is actually KDB, and because he looks very sharp and he go to the
Mhm.
box, he's taking shot, so he's also another one. But obviously, I think mostly it will be focused on Salah and the Spurs players. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it has to be Salah. I mean, especially his record against the newly promoted teams is unbelievably good, right? I don't want to talk about the game week one or something like that, but he just completely destroys the newly promoted teams against Fulham. And Fulham is kind of one of those teams who doesn't kind of hold back. They're kind of attacking minded team. So they will attack, right? So they will not sit back and defend and defend. So I think it's a very, very good game for Salah. It's hard to look past him.
Hmm.
But yeah, if you have Kane or Son, I think it's a fair captaincy shout, whoever you have alongside Salah. um Again, I mean, it's all about variance, right? Last season, how we saw how it was. But good thing is that Salah is not like super duper highly owned either. He's, I think, what, about 52-53% owned right now,
Yeah.
something like that. So if anytime you want to take the chance, this is probably not the worst time in game week one to take a chance with Kane and some very, very, very valid fixture against Southampton. Wrangler, you want to add what you're thinking also from his own captaincy?
Yeah, it's basically, I mean, Salah, as Paz was mentioning, right, that it might be like in 2 seasons ago, like Leeds and Liverpool, like 4-3, right?
Mhm.
A lot of goals. We might see that too. By the way, just wanted to mention here, like the like opponent XGC that we put here, Fulham's number is basically from the championship, right? So
Mhm.
it's 0.92 because they are top in that.
Lot of championship tax. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't be fool with that. But yeah, it's Salah, and definitely Kane and Son, right? It's very good shout, Southampton at home,
Mhm.
right? And that's why you have this debate, right? That Kane or Son versus Haaland, right? Or KDB,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So yeah, definitely very good shout, but Salah for me right now.
I have a question. If you guys, if say the Nunes starts from the beginning, how do you think it will affect Salah? I know he, like I feel like he was more creative, like when Darwin came, right? So, uh, how do you think that,
Mhm.
say, if Darwin outscore Salah, what? How do you? I mean, it might happen. Do you think?
I mean, he can. Darwin definitely can score more goals than Salah, but again, because Salah being the midfielder, and he just likes to score goals, right? He's that kind of guy who wants to win the Golden Boot every year. He even talks about these things, right? That I want to win the Golden Boot and so on. So I just don't see him being more peripheral. I think he will be as involved as ever. Nothing will change. If anything, I mean, maybe Liverpool will score overall more goals because now they have a proper number nine. But that's about it. But I don't see Salah's potential going down. If anything, and again, he'll probably be the assister when Darwin is scoring the goals as well, right? So his assist potential will probably go up. So yeah, I'm not worried about Salah's FPL potential. Okay. All right. So good discussion on the captaincy. Let's move on to our last section, and probably the most important part, at least for us, for ourselves. We like to talk about our teams, and this is all we have been doing for since the prices came out, since the game came out, right? Last 5-6 weeks, tinkering, and trying to figure out what team structure we want, taking in all the new information. And as I said, the information is not done yet, right? So tomorrow and the day after, until the deadline, we'll get more information. So that may change certain things a little bit here and there. But of course, we have spent enough time on our teams to say that it's about 70-80% locked, I'm pretty sure, for all of us. So let's just quickly run through our teams. So this is my team. I'll just read out for everyone. So I have Sanchez in goal, Walker, James Reese, Perisic, and Trent in defense. Bailey, Salah, and Neto. Salah captain, of course, against Fulham. And I am all in for the attackers, Haaland, Jesus, and Kane. So I'm in a premium structure, so that means I have no bench at all. It's basically a bare minimum of a 4 million goalkeeper, 4 million defender, and two 4.5 million midfielders, right? As cheap as it can get, essentially. Um, But what I'm trying to also cover are the EOs, like the high EO players, as much as possible, even though I'm in a premium structure. So as when we're talking about these enablers, Netos and Baileys, a lot of people I have seen them even in like a Tumium structure. And when we look at your team, we'll see them in there as well. So they are kind of highly owned players, at least in the Twitter FPL community, they are. One big miss, and as we were talking about before, the big sacrifice is Cancelo. Walker being 2 million cheaper, so I have to kind of get him in to enable all the other things that I want to get into. There is still a route to Cancelo. I'll talk about it briefly. I spoke about James. I just don't want to go without him. But again, there is a possibility, given the news that I hear over the next 2 days, there could be a change in that as well, slight change. Um, Perisic is another one. Given contest comments, it looks like he's more nailed probably than Doherty. Um, and he's a machine, right? He is like 33 years old, but he literally played like 35 league games last season. He started and played 35 league games. So he's super fit and everything. He's just kind of working through a few niggles and here and there. So I'm not worried about that. I think he's just so much above a Sessenian in class. I just don't see that it even as a risk. Like Sessegnon may come in for a game or two here and there. Absolutely possible. You don't expect any player to play 38 games, but I think Perisic, when he plays, has so much upside. I think it's undeniable value at 5.5 million. So the other places, other than these three defenders, all the other places in my team, I think are fairly locked. So I'm pretty certain to go with Sanchez in goal. Pretty certain, absolutely Trent locked, Salah locked, Haaland, Kane, and Jesus locked. Bailey and Neto are pretty locked as well for this particular structure. My bench is pretty locked as well. Da Silva may change to another 4.5 mid, but that barely matters. The only three positions that I'm kind of waiting for more news on are Walker, whether Man City buys another wing back or not. James, what his fitness situation is, what other players Chelsea are buying, the transfer market situation. If they buy another center back, absolutely James. I have no doubt he'll play right wing back. Perisic, maybe not as much, but again, see what his fitness is like and so on. If Conte makes any other comments on that. So those are the three positions, Walker, James, and Perisic, I'm kind of working with to make sure that I have the right combination, right players in there. So Walker could easily convert to any other 5 million defenders. So I can easily start with a Trippier or a Cash. They have good fixtures in the first 2 game weeks, so I can go there and then get into Walker later on. James can convert to a Cancelo, so 1 million more. So I'll have to take that 1 million out of potentially Perisic, so downgrade him to a 4.5 million defender, especially if I hear anything about Perisic's in fitness issues. That is a possibility, and I think there are still plenty of 4.5 million defenders that I can get in. So that's my biggest EO risk, right? Cancelo. He's, I think, at around 30% overall ownership, something like that. Robertson is fairly low owned. I wanted, of course, would 100% want Robertson, but just cannot fit him in, of course, again, given the structure. But other than that, I don't necessarily have any other big EO risk, right? All the 8 million midfielders are kind of distributed. Different people are going for different players. So there is no big risk. Even though I have a premium structure, I'm fairly risk averse, right? So I'm not taking like super big risk necessarily. But yeah, that's what my thought process is. I'll kind of look for the press conferences, look for news on City and Chelsea's transfers, Perisic's fitness. But other than that, I'm fairly locked in. Any comments, any suggestions?
No, I like it actually. I mean, it's actually Dan is also saying the best premium he saw. It's same with me. I think with Waka it also covers Cancelo very well. I mean, even if City does not sign any fullback, right? But it's actually a great team. You don't have to worry about uh, game weeks two like without Haaland or like Don't need to worry about starting with Kane. So
Mhm.
overall, it's a good team. I like it.
Yeah. Anything, Wrangler?
Yeah, I mean, again, I agree with everyone. This is probably one of the, well, this is the best premium drafts I've seen too. So basically, as I told you before, the main difference here is Kane versus your third Liverpool spot. That's the only difference. Expecting Walker is going to cover Cancelo, right?
Hmm.
Otherwise, I think you covered all other like EO, risk that you have. So yeah, I really like it. So one thing I think I told Derek, the reason I didn't go to premium is because the difference I feel like, again, the difference is here Kane versus third Liverpool sport. And for me, third Liverpool sport is Robertson, right?
Hmm.
Now we expect, right? I mean, a lot of things can happen, but we expect that Liverpool will have lots of clean sheet in first 6 or 7 games, right? And that's kind of a 4 points for Robertson if he plays, right? If he's nailed, and in that case, Kane has to actually score in every game if he has to make that, right? And in case Robertson get a return, then he has to have a brace. But
Hmm.
again, I mean, it's a kind of we are saying, but if it Fulham becomes 4-3 like Leeds, it's all of this discussion is kind of a garbage, right? So I can see that this draft or this template, premium, and the big at the back or other that I have or others, I think they're gonna have very similar point after 7 or 8 game weeks. That's I feel that they're not gonna be much difference here,
Yeah.
and the template actually is very strong this time. By the way, that's I feel. Okay, so very good draft. I don't have much of things to say here. Just think about your exit route. I think you already
Hmm.
planned it out. That if something emerges or if something goes wrong, what to do. Just make sure you plan it out. So.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I want to mention is whoever uh, I mean, anyone can go and check FPL review. Their models are out. Even if you don't want to use the premium model, you can check it with the free model as well. So my premium team is actually just 8 points behind the most optimal team over the first 8 game weeks without any transfer. So of course, with transfers, with optimum transfers, I can get basically the optimal as many points as the optimal team is supposed to get, right? Of course, it's model and everything, but it kind of gives you that nice assurance, right, that you are not too far off uh, from the template or from the EV structure, right? So you are almost there. So that's something that I definitely wanted to double check that whether I'm taking too much risk with the premium structure, whether it damages my point potential down the road, right? Not just game week one, game week two, down the road, at least till game week two, eight, because that's when I want to wild card, right? So that's what my thought process, and I will suggest everyone to go there and check how does it compare against an optimal team, your team. That's a very good kind of assurance to make sure that you are not too off of the template or the EV structure. All right. So yeah, that's something that I wanted to mention. But let's move on to Wrangler, your team. And surprisingly, before you talk about it, there are actually I think 11 players. I mean, if you disregard the goalkeeper, let's assume the 4 million goalkeeper the same. 11 out of the 15 players we have same, right? So even though our structures are very different, but the players that we are looking at are actually very, very similar. And as you mentioned, the Robo Cancelo versus Kane Walker. That's our major difference in the main 11. And of course, you have a better bench because you have that extra money to spend on a Martinelli, right? So, talk us through your team. What is your thought process?
Yeah, and that's actually I told you, right? I felt that the point wise after 7 or 8 game weeks, I think
Mm.
we'll be kind of on similar boat or similar position. So yeah, my one is very much template-ish. If you are like five at the back template-ish, and also with Robertson draft. So this preseason actually was kind of, I would say, way more relaxed than my other seasons. I mean, I actually, as you know, I do a lot of tinkering. I do a lot of strategies, right? But this season it was easy for me since all the game was like big teams game was easy. And the first draft that I made out of 15, actually 12 of them are still here. I just removed one or two of them, and I'm gonna tell you which one I removed. Basically, I removed Chilwell
Mm.
and brought Perisic because Chilwell is not. is secure right now, right?
Yep.
So it's big at the back. In the goalie, I have Sanchez. I have point 0.5 million in the bank. I can go to Ramsdale, but I wanted to keep that point 0.5 because I feel like I might need that point 0.5. Although Ramsdale is better choice than Sanchez, but I think Sanchez fixture is good too, and
Mhm.
Brighton's defense has been good. So I'm so far on Sanchez. Robertson, James, Trent, Perez, Cancelo. Five of them are locked unless I hear in the press conference, they have some issues or concern. Salah captain, I have Neto, Bailey, and Martinelli. And it's kind of a benching dilemma for now for me. I am right top benching Martinelli because it's Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace was like fourth best team in terms of if they considered last year.
Mhm.
They were actually just after Chelsea, so even better than Spurs. Okay, so that's why I felt this is gonna be tough team, and I have Haaland and Jesus. Okay,
Mhm.
the reason I like this team because again, as you mentioned, right, game weeks 2 or 3, right, like Neto is gonna play against Spurs in third game week, and Perith is gonna play against Chelsea in second game week. So that's where I can rotate Martinelli with others. So that's what I like. That's
Mhm.
what is the expectation. But again, with a lot of unforeseen stuffs, right? Lots of surprises there. The only thing I don't like here is that I don't have Kane or I don't have any Spurs attacker. That's the only like risk I see here, and I don't like it. But what can I do? I mean, we cannot have everyone, right? Otherwise, I like it pretty much. I think it's pretty much locked unless I hear anything bad here. I have some exit out as well. If any mid-price mid emerges, right? So that's why I actually have this point 0.5. Okay, so I was thinking either Martinelli or anyone like Neto or Bailey. If any of them actually kind of don't look good, I can upgrade them. And out of these five defense, if any of them looks kind of off, I can downgrade them. So I have I will have that option. So I will see in that time. And thinking to have wild card around at game week 8 or 9 after the international break, if everything goes well. So yeah, that- pretty template-ish, I think. But again, I mean, I took this team. That was my first draft whenever the game was launched. So I'm pretty happy with it, and I didn't think that much, except bringing Sancho. Otherwise, it was all like that. Anything you would like to say?
No, yeah, I think hard to argue with this, right? All proven assets. You have the right enablers in place. You have a good bench to rotate in game week 2, game week 3 when your game week 1 starts. The starters have a tougher fixture, right? So it's uh, very very hard to argue with. And as you said, like you don't have Kane, but you have other players who can easily match him, right? As a team, that's what matters. Your team EV, that's what matters at the end of the day. So yeah, I think it's as you said, it's template, but it's not necessarily that all the players are 100% owned, right? So there is still a lot of points for you to gain over the average, right? Not every average team has these 11 players. So there are, I think, still plenty of chances for you to be at a good rank after the first few games. Good team. All right. Next, ZD, you want to take us through your team?
Yeah, I think again we have similar team. Probably two, three spots are different, right? Like here I have Alexander Arnold, I have Cancelo, I have Robertson. Instead of Perisic, I have Doherty because of the budget, but I like Perisic as well. Um Obviously, it's not fixed. I have some like dilemma in two, three spots which I might uh, like change tomorrow. But Nato, Bailey, Martinelli, they are fixed most because I am not going to change them unless something we hear from the press conference. Salah is locked as a captain, Jesus, and like all the bench is fixed. So another thing is I don't have any Man City attacker. I have Kane. So for game week 2, I mean, although I don't like it that much, but I might go to Haaland. And another thing is I have Wilson, like for now. The main reason I was thinking actually I was swapping it like Wilson, Nunez, then Robertson to like um, there are lots of option actually in
Hmm.
defense, right? Lots of 5 million to 7 or 6 million bracket. Like there are lots of good options. So um, if I can take like Nunes, then I can actually have anyone. But again, there is X minute concern. So I just took Robertson, and for now I took Wilson. But I am actually thinking of whether having Wilson or like Madison. So that's the only place the concern. But again, I like those three pick like Neto, Bailey, Martinelli. So probably at the end, I might also go in the five at the back rather than Wilson. That could be a probability as well. Uh, I mean, right now, I was thinking to have Wilson because I can probably after 2 3 game weeks I can go to move to Darwin, like
Hmm.
just uh, like taking a instead of Robertson, or like, I mean, it would be easy swap. But that was my thinking actually. That's why I took Wilson. But there is a chance that I don't want to book that transfer as well. So just that place, I might take Wilson and fifth defender. But other than, I think I'm locked, and I might take Haaland in, like
Give
in
me two.
game. Yeah, and
I
that might
actually like
happen.
your Wilson pick, by the way.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a good pick. At least for the first two game weeks, it's a very,
Um,
very good pick.
if you follow like Ed, he's actually a Newcastle fan, and he actually said very good things. So Wilson usually you find him like kind of injured, right? Most of the time in the season. But this time the fixture look good. He's good in good shape. So you just this is the time you get him, like Martinelli, right? As you said, like
Hmm.
this is the time you get him. Wilson is the player. The fixture look good, and Newcastle actually is a good team. So I
Yeah,
think you can definitely back him up, and you can see Chelsea situation a little bit. I guess. In any case, I don't think they're not gonna do anything. Like the second game is Spurs, right? First game is Everton, so I think it's okay. I think you can.
yeah.
I mean, like,
Chelsea's. I'm just waiting on Chelsea.
yeah,
I mean, obviously, I will go there at some point. I mean,
Yeah,
but I'm not actually willing to start with them right now.
yeah,
yeah. I
that's fair. I
think
think their fixtures turned better after game week 7, 8 time frame as well. So you can easily wait out and see who are the best assets and then get in them. It's definitely not an absolute must to start with a Chelsea. So,
Hmm.
looks good, looks good. And I also really like the Wilson pick. It's kind of otherwise your team is again kind of covering all the high or
Yeah.
players, but then Wilson is kind of your sword, right? So you have a
Hmm.
very good differential in him, and he can absolutely haul in game week 1 and 2. I like it.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Okay. So we are at the end of our video. So we spent more than 1.5 hour. But again, we had to because this is game week one, pre-game week one. So we had to talk about a lot of teams, all the teams, all the players, right? So it takes time. So thanks again for all, especially all the FPL USA people who have been here with us. I see still Derek, Dan, Charles was here, Dallas, Rajesh, Paz. Who else was here? So a few other people, Bangla FPL. So thanks again for being here with us. Thanks for your continuous support. Uh, we will be back for our pre-game week 2 video, hopefully in about a week or so. Again, remember the deadline is Friday, so don't forget that. You don't want to start your season on the wrong foot. Do remember that the deadline. I think it's 1:30 Eastern time, if I'm not wrong. I think the first game, Arsenal Crystal Palace, is at 3. So make sure that you don't forget that. Other than that, good luck, Wrangler. Good luck, ZD, for your Game Week 1 team, and good luck for your seasons. Good luck to everyone, and thanks for staying here with us. We'll meet you again next week.
yep, thank you guys.
Have a good night. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.